Hi, friends. My name is Eric Barnett, and I'm a singer-songwriter from Charleston, South Carolina, and you're listening to Songs of the Unsung. Songs of the Unsung is a podcast where I talk to fellow singer-songwriters about their influences, their music, and the craft. This week's guest is Joshua Jarman. In addition to being a fantastic singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, Joshua is an exceptional guitarist. He does a lot of extended technique stuff, tapping, fingerstyle playing. You just have to see it. This Friday, you can catch Joshua and myself opening for Ron Daniel at his Country Made for Kings album release party. It's at Coastal Coffee Roasters, 6 p.m. Also on the bill is Anna Crosby and Dan Riley and his band, The Marvelous Misfits. Make sure you listen to previous episodes of Songs of the Unsung, where you can learn about Ron Daniel and the album, and also learn Dan Riley's story. But for now, let's head to my conversation with Joshua Jarman. Thanks for coming out today, Joshua.
You're quite welcome.
Good to have you on the podcast, and look forward to getting to know a little bit more about you and your music, man.
I'm glad to talk about it, man.
I first met you, I don't know if you remember this, but I think you were running an open mic out at Coastal Coffee Roasters.
Okay, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And I had just moved here. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was trying to hit a lot of kind of local open mics. I was really shy and everything. And I got there, and it was a drive to Somerville. You just did the reverse of that, so
yes.
You know how that can be, especially like at rush hour. And I'd gotten there, and the list was pretty long, so I went and put my name on. And there was a lot of folks there, and it was kind of getting late in the open mic. And there was something that happens, and this happens in every open mic, where sometimes people get up and play their own songs, and then they get up with their buddy and play some more songs with their buddy, and then another one of their other buddies get up and they play some more songs with their buddies.
And that person's been up there the whole night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it gets to, and I'm sitting there like, not okay. Maybe I was being a little salty about the same folks, and like it really gotten down to where, and you were trying to kind of speed the process along and everything, and I could tell, but it gotten to like where there wasn't much time left, and it was like me and a couple other people to go, and I was kind of more frustrated at them than with you, but I got up and you're like, hey man, can you just do like one song? And I am never like this. I said, man, my songs are 2 minutes long. I'm gonna do 2 songs, and you were just like, all right then.
That sounds about right.
That's not my style. I typically don't do that, but yeah, I literally have a song that's like 2 minutes 12, and another. I was like, I'll do 2 real quick ones. You were like, yeah, that's okay.
Well, sometimes you can tell when someone's not usually that way, but they're like, listen, this is how it is.
Yeah,
like, you know, I admire that.
So, yeah, I'm sorry if that was a bad first impression, but then I met you again. I saw you and Ben Somewhere and Roger play over at the Tin Roof, and it was excellent seeing you guys play.
I recall that re-meeting there. And in the meantime, you had started this podcast and had a few things going on locally, so we had some stuff to talk about, which was cool.
Yeah.
I miss doing the open mic at Coastal for a lot of reasons. Of course, I got to meet a lot of great artists, including yourself, just doing that, but man, it got hard at the end when we were trying to push. Like, there was a time where it was successful, but we didn't have the time to get everyone in. And there's nothing worse than telling someone, the worst case, that I can't have you play tonight. Please come back next week. And they're like, I drove here from Orangeburg. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying my best. But I'm glad to, have opportunities like this because of that.
Yeah.
That place. And
for sure. It seems like there's a kind of a life cycle to open mics where, they start and there's typically nobody there. Mm-hmm. And then you'll get there and it'll be maybe 3 people, and you just kind of rotate through all night. And the host is just like, man, I hope I can keep this job.
Yep.
And then it starts to get to the point where it gains a little traction. And that's sort of, there's like a perfect zone in there where it has like just the right amount of traction.
Everything's smooth, the wheels are greased. Yep.
Yeah, and the people are coming and they're all hanging out and they're having a great time. But then there comes a point where, I'm not saying all open mics go this way, I'm just saying some do, where some open mics get to where you have people who break with the protocol. Like, oh, I'm going to play an 8-minute song or
Yes. So I had people beginning to do that. So,
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
it's true.
you're
They were like, okay, I understand we're doing one song this week or whatever. There was especially after quarantine, we tried it again with different hours, and they weren't staying open as late as things were. So people were like, okay, I'll just do one song. Well, it's a 15-song medley, dude. You just played like all these tunes you wrote together, and you're smiling at me the whole time. I'm like, dude, you're being a butthead. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's and you're gonna see that anywhere you go. And some people it's kind of unintentional. I don't know
it's true. Yeah, I'm sure people. I give them the credit of they're not being malicious, but it's awful convenient sometimes. You're like, come on, you never play medleys.
Right. Or like I don't know. There was one I've been to where it was like a group of 4 people, and they were giving people 3 songs, so the 4 people would sign up. And it was basically, they had an hour gig. Like, they all kind of sat in together, and they're like, oh, we're going to rotate that.
And that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's cool, but don't call it an open mic. If
Right, yeah.
For sure. I miss doing those, though. I know that you're doing one now locally, so are you not doing an open mic?
No, nope.
Were you doing one locally recently?
With this podcast, I was actually doing, and it was a songwriter showcase.
So it was not an open mic, it was invite only.
Yeah, it was the 3 people who were on. I would do 3 episodes and then a showcase of those people.
Oh, that's awesome. What a cool premise. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking to get it started back up again. As always, you want to try to find a place where, how do you find a place that's a listening room where people are going to go listen and people are going to go, and you don't have to sell tickets, but the bar or whoever it is feels like they'll still pay you. And that, to me, that so far, that's a combination that doesn't seem to exist.
It does in some cities, though, and that's what becomes kind of frustrating. I love our town. I love our surrounding towns. The community, the little essence or flavor of small townedness is beautiful, and it's getting more and more rare. But what you just said is something that's haunted me, especially for the last 5 years, that we don't have venues. We don't have places that are creatively bringing people in, and then they enjoy things like local beer, and then they enjoy things like, we go to local breweries, and then you enjoy a little taste of music.
Yeah.
Man, I've wanted to open a place that is a storefront with a venue in the back for years, and I think it would do really well somewhere in the little Tri-County hub here.
Yeah.
But that would offer, like, say you had an open mic there that was specifically a listening room. You go there and it's original music only or something, you know. I feel like any town really needs that. That's what's going to kind of keep everything stimulated and creative. But
it's not like these things don't exist at all. They exist in sort of pieces and parts in different places. All and All Green, what Eddie White's doing out there, and has been doing for 15 years?
He has, and he's been very successful and involved a lot of different people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What Danielle Howell was doing out at Holy City Confessionals for a while.
That's true.
And she had that really going. What George Fox is currently doing at Chico Feo on Mondays. But again, it's not necessarily a listening environment.
And those are establishments that are specifically built for something else and are allowing the creative space.
Yes.
Whereas, I guess in my imagination, you'd have a giant creatively fueled space. Maybe the venue is only open after 4 o'clock in the evenings, but up until that point, you have, I don't know, like a store and maybe like a little mingle area for people to meet other musicians. I don't know. But I feel like those things existed more so in decades past. And as we're, I don't know, getting more comfortable with the digital space, stuff like that, people are just less likely to show up to places like that. And how can you stay above water if you don't have the local beer, the local food, things like that? You know?
Yeah. I mean, especially with the rent in Charleston, to actually have a place like that.
Rent anywhere for anything.
Oh, yeah. Right.
But you're right. I mean, those kinds of a commercial space is zoned that way, big enough to do that and far enough away from things for sound ordinance or whatever else you might have, you're going to be paying a lot of money.
Yeah. Especially if you want a place for people to park.
Yeah, logistics. That's something people don't think about. Like, I got this great spot. I'm like, we can't park here. We got to go 4 blocks down and walk. That's not cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, man. Someday somebody's going to thread the needle and figure out how to do that, and
it'll come together. If someone wants it bad enough, that's how things work.
And the money will come. It's just the want is there for it. People don't necessarily know they want it, but I think they do.
Well, and you find the investors that always wanted to be a musician and had to do something else. And they're like, yeah, I'd love to support that.
Yeah. So, I always do a little bit of research before people, just so I'm not asking you the same standard questions you get asked every time. So a couple really good resources to learn more about Joshua is a really good Somerville Journal Scene article. It's on the Post and Courier website. I'll link to that in the show notes. Really good City Paper article. A couple podcasts he's done on Craft Conversation with Brian Dales.
Yep.
I'll post links to those. And he was the MuFix Songwriter of the Month for September 2018. Also post that, his interview with Kevin Church. And
love those guys.
Yeah, they're good folks. Originally from Somerville.
From Ridgeville, actually.
Ridgeville,
so,
okay.
Outside of Somerville, enough to where no one knows you there. You have to go to Somerville to kind of have community.
You start out by saying, I'm from Somerville, and they go, oh, no, I'm from Somerville. I know that. Oh, okay, well, then I'm from Ridgeville.
That's right. And if they don't know any of that, we're just from Charleston.
Right, exactly. Started playing guitar at 7, you said.
Yep, that's true.
Teaching yourself, or did you have anybody showing you any lessons?
So I got that instead of a football, I like to joke. And arguably at a young age, I was just strumming and trying to emulate. I used to watch videos of Angus Young at Donington and try to like just emulate these awesome rock stars. I didn't understand rock star at the point, like how do these humans get to play for 10,000 people?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, by the time I was 10, I was trying to learn like 12-bar blues and hanging out with musicians, trying to be introduced at little picking parlors and stuff.
Nice.
Meet as many people as I could and keep it flowing in my mind, keep wanting it,
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of music were you listening to at that age? Besides for AC/DC, of course.
Yeah. So I'm actually not a huge AC/DC fan, but I give credit there. As I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah. But, I grew up with Iron Maiden, late 80s Metallica. That's the kind of stuff I grew up listening to. My dad was a big Pink Floyd person. So I got my dose of classic rock in there. And, I always wanted to, by the time I found my own music, rather, I was listening to metal. I was into like Killswitch Engage, early Avenged Sevenfold. A Lamb of God came shortly after that. I was into, rebellion. I was like, let me see how heavy music I can tolerate and be heavier than the next guy, yada, yada. I started getting into playing heavy guitar parts and, I was in a screamo band for a while there.
Corsica?
So, yep, Corsica.
Excellent.
That was an awesome experience. I'll never, ever forget that.
And you said the guys in that band were kind of older than you.
They were. They had me by about 10 years at the youngest. And they had a little bit more experience in playing in bands than I did. So I got to just jump right on in with people who were already warmed up to it. It was awesome. And I was really blessed to be able to hang,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Typically in a band, if guys are going to tolerate somebody who's younger than them, especially if he's a guitar player, because the guitar players are a dime a dozen, that means you could play.
I was always on point. The biggest issue that I ever had with them, because I had something to prove. I was a young guy. I wanted the girls to look at me, I was like, but I never moved on stage. They were like, dude, you're a scarecrow on stage. You just stand there. But other than that, it went well.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Learned a lot of things, probably not even as much musically, but about life, kind of running around and doing that kind of thing.
One of the greatest things filled with lessons that I got to experience was recording at a legitimate studio at that time in Atlanta. And it just had all the rock star feels. It checked all these boxes for me. We had the whole week where we were renting the top half of the building and the bottom half was a studio. And to me, it was just the real deal, man. We all were just like, we didn't even have hot water in the house for whatever reason. It was cold water. We were taking like wet nap showers and stuff.
That's a rock star lifestyle.
It was what it was.
All the way.
It was only a week, so it was tolerable, and I'll have those memories forever, man. It was really cool.
That's awesome. The first time record got hit and it was up to you to deliver, how'd you react to that?
When the
first time they hit record.
Oh, so without sounding too confident, I tracked pretty well. I was comfortable with the zone, and again, I was just enthralled with like kind of having something to prove. I didn't have any way to show off. I mean, I knew the parts, and I could only play the parts. There was no improv in this band. It was like the guy who ran it was very by the books. When we got there, we only played original music. We didn't jam. Something I've been yearning for again in life. But anyway, when they would hit record and I was tracking, I just wanted to nail the part and show everybody, this metaphoric middle finger, like I did it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing like a band that actually has prepared for the recording.
Yeah, and I noticed some struggles in not only myself at certain times, but the drummer had some issues. So I got to experience like what could go wrong as well.
Sure.
And that's a quick way of learning in life, I tell you.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, obviously that was electric guitar, and that was electric guitar played with a pick, and a lot of palm muting and chugging. But when in this did the acoustic stuff and the percussive stuff, when did that come into play?
So that Corsica fell apart right before my high school career, maybe sophomore year. Everyone else grew up. One of the guys got married. The other guys moved to Colorado when things were changing there. And they were like, oh, we're going to go on that bandwagon. I was like, I bet you are. Anyway, so in high school, I had to figure out a way to keep music going, but I had put all my time and eggs in the basket of this band and touring with these guys. And I didn't really know anyone else to start a band with. I had like some noisemaker friends, and we'd get together and just scream nonsense and, stuff like that. But the only way I could go about music seriously and expect the world to reward me in return was to be a solo artist. So I had to figure out, the first step was play guitar on an acoustic guitar and sing, and figure out how to do those together. Right? And so I worked that out. And then I remember it was like 2008, maybe somewhere in there, that I discovered Andy Mckee.
Oh, okay.
And it was gorgeous. I was like, what is he doing? What is this, right?
Yeah.
And that led me, or I guess the algorithm led me slowly into finding artists not only that were more modern that were doing that, but from the past that no one ever knew about back in the day, like Michael Hedges.
Yes.
Is an artist that only musicians really know, but was doing things back in the 90s that just, I don't know, didn't get real popular. Amazing ways of playing harp guitars and double neck instruments. And so anyway, a long story short there, I just kind of tried to emulate those things the best that I could. I couldn't afford a loop pedal at the time, and they really weren't very popular in 2008 or 9. They were just getting started. So I had to learn to try to keep that rhythm and the pop. And I mean, there was no like big turning point. I just stretched myself to try to emulate those sounds as much as I could, and I didn't have a drummer, and I was frustrated with that, so I had to try to figure out how to be the drummer too. And after a while I had fallen into this way of playing that, at the cost of a nice guitar, you scratch the hell out of that.
Sure.
You had some sounds that when I started playing open mics, I realized nobody else was doing, for whatever reason. Like nobody else was letting their hand leave the bridge of the guitar.
Sure. So, yeah. Well, it's not easy.
I mean, I hear that, and what is easy and what's hard when you're the one engulfed in creative space.
When it's your own
when
style.
You're being creative, you're like, oh, this is just what I'm doing,
Sure.
and the way it is. But I quickly found out while I'm ranting on that there were some guys in the world doing the same thing to astronomical levels. Like Andy Mckee just unlocked a door for American guitarists, and things very, very quickly started changing. And so there was just this bar. It was exciting for 10 years after that, where you would find these videos and you would try to emulate that. And by the time you got that technique, you discover something else someone's doing. Yeah. And before long, everybody's scratching on every ounce of the guitar that you have. And it was very cool. And I would say that's kind of got us where we are now with just YouTube instrumentalists and guitarists, and things are next level. For
I
sure.
remember first time seeing Andy Mckee, and it was in the early days of YouTube. Actually, the way everything hit was kind of perfect timing.
Exactly.
Because Andy Mckee, I forget the label he was on.
Candy Rat Records.
Candy Rat. Yes. Yep. I knew it was something rat.
And they were all amazing.
Yes.
Go on.
And no, it's one of those too where during that time I was into a lot of smaller labels, to the point where I would trust whatever music they curated for me.
Sure.
And whenever I saw a new video came out under that Candy Rat Records moniker, I had a few guitar player buddies that I was like, I know I'm going to forward this on to them.
This is going to be good.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things where I'd wondered, seeing you play and trying to think back to the timing of when you would have started this. I was like, I wonder if kind of Andy Mckee.
That's that's very much an influence, and there were more than just him, but
Sure.
he's the most notable, and he probably gathered the most notoriety of all of those guys in our generation. And I'm just flabbergasted with the sound, the ability to do all these things, and now you have fellas like Mike Dawes. Do you know who Mike Dawes is?
I don't know who Mike Dawes. No.
It's like the epitome of simultaneous playing. If you close your eyes, you're like, this dude's a great looper, and you open your eyes, and you're like, I'm quitting guitar. Like,
this guy's not looping. Yeah,
excellent.
I was lucky enough to get my hands on a looping pedal pretty early, so I never actually had to learn how to play well.
No, I mean, they're a very quick way of learning, dude. Your lead playing comes leaps and bounds with the loop pedal.
I was big into, there was a band called Pele, and I had seen them on stage, and the guy started doing stuff, and I'm looking at his hands, and I'm listening to what's coming out, and they're a 3-piece band, and I was like, what's going on?
Yep.
And it was actually, it might have been like 2001. And after the show, I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, this is an Akai head rush. It does this looping thing. But what he did that I really enjoyed was, it's not like he would play a rhythm part and then go back and play over it. He would do a thing where it would be like a couple notes, and then he'd go back and hit like a couple contrapuntal notes, and then he'd hit a couple things. And it would be something where these notes would go in a key to where when he played chords over it, it didn't matter what chords he was playing, those notes would fit, and it was just a thing that was cool. So.
That's definitely a style of looping that I've discovered, because there are a lot of different ways of approaching loopers, and I've gotten one recently where I sit and can hook my mic up, I beatbox, and I'll do all this like just noise making. I don't ever do it public yet because that's putting a lot of eggs in the looper basket, and I'm not very confident with it yet.
Yes.
But anyhow, building with the nuances at first allows your loop to be a whole lot longer before it climaxes. Like you can keep building it up and like get people to interact. Whereas if you're a songwriter, you might want the rhythm to go ahead and be there.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
Were you writing songs using these techniques at this point, or were you applying them to songs you'd already written?
So the first thing I recall doing was applying it to some of my favorite cover songs. Okay. And my parents were supportive enough of music and growing up that my dad would give me requests. Like he always wanted me to play "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd, of course. It was just something he would judge me on that too. Like, your lead needs work. I'm like, what the hell, man? Come on. So "Simple Man" by Leonard Skinner, of course, was another one of those classics that we learned early on. And he would always ask me to play it, and it would annoy me because I didn't want to play that. I wanted to play like "The Trooper" by Iron Maiden or something, right? So I decided that I could loosen up my right hand and try to get this percussive side of that song. And so I came up with a percussive version of "Simple Man." And that was the first time I really dabbled with being disciplined with it. And shortly after, I started writing original music based on poetry that I had that allowed me to do that. I kind of viewed the percussive aspect of acoustic guitar playing as hypnotic and trying to captivate people that way, because I was never able to unlock my left hand to being noodly. I was never able to be like, and I wanted it really bad, but I just didn't put the time in and the discipline. So I had to figure out how to be as flashy as possible with my right hand, I guess. I guess.
We all have to work. You work within your limitations, and then you unlock a thing that other people look at it and they say, well, that's fantastic.
Right.
They're like, you don't understand. I only do this because I can't do that.
I can't do the other thing. Yes. Right.
Yeah. I feel good about like the finger picking patterns of my right hand, and my left hand is trash.
Yeah. I mean, mine's just slow and sluggish, and I know I could work on it. I've got time, but I just, I have to play gigs
fun.
Now. No, man, that's like woodshedding. You have to sit down and play this, this scale 100 times or whatever. And
that's why you have David Sink's number in your phone.
I'm so glad you said his name, man, because I'm envisioning him in my head. Like, it's like I just go to his videos to drop my jaw and go, oh my goodness, I can do that. That's possible.
I try to see how many episodes I can drop his name in.
That's funny. He's wonderful, man. I've had the opportunity to play and record with him several times. I heard that.
Yeah. It was really good. Cool. Let's talk about some of your albums, man.
All right.
The first one, Pickersville Sessions.
Okay, yeah. So that was my first experience with recording as a solo artist outside of my home. Something a little more in someone else's hands. And that was, that project was a gift from my buddy Jared, who took me unannounced. He was just like, grab a guitar, we're going on a road trip. And he took me to the studio. I was just like, I met this guy, and he wants to record your music, and your music means a lot to me, so I want to make sure it's out there.
Yeah.
And I sat on that music for some years before I released it. And it was only after the release of my album, Mud, that I released Pickersville.
Really?
Yeah, I put it out there. I was like, I'm going to get my backlog out, and that way I'm not going to lose any of this stuff. So, Pickersville is full of songs that are very wordy, very angsty, and I was probably between 16 and 19 when I wrote those lyrics. So
Okay.
a lot of those things were very like, what's up with the world? How come it's this way? Why do I, and I don't play a lot of those songs anymore because I just can't speak that quickly. I don't feel the same about some of that stuff. And
I did notice the production of it. It's mainly just guitar and voice, and
simple.
maybe there might have been a double tracked vocal on a song or two.
Yeah, and it was like a over compressed guitar. I wasn't doing percussion with my guitar at the time, but I was dabbling in tapping. So there are some licks in there that were pretty rhythmic, and you could hear that I was doing like lead stuff with my right hand, which was kind of cool. First time trying that in a studio, and that guy Doug that did the recording was just sweet as could be. It was a great experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Seems I kind of the next two albums kind of go together for me.
Yeah.
Mud and Weight.
Yeah.
It's because you did both of those with what was that gentleman? John Baldwin.
John Baldwin, yep. And in fact, I did the following two with him as well, but those two kind of had a flavor. I met that guy at the Coastal Coffee Roasters open mic over, I covered a song by a fellow named Nick Drake, who was a singer-songwriter from the 60s. It didn't have a long repertoire or life, but not everybody knows who he is. So I covered one of their songs, and I sat down, and he comes up to me and goes, "Dude, was that Nick Drake?" And I was like, "Oh, did we just become friends?" He's like, "Yeah." Well, as it would happen, he currently at that time lived like 2 blocks from my parents' house in Ridgeville, where I grew up in the middle of the country. I was like, "There's nobody else lives out here, and I could, like, a pigeon could fly to your house." So we became good friends, hanging out all the time, recording, jamming. And one of the things I appreciated about John Baldwin, and still do, is this man can make music with anything, sounds with anything. He's just like a true artist, musician who doesn't require an instrument. And so we ended up making sounds with we created thunder with sheets of metal. We created rain with rain sticks. He had these little wooden frogs, and I made it sound like it was just like a swampy outside, I don't know how to describe it, a swampy nature scene I tried to create just like our homeland. We found out we're both from this area. Let's describe it with sound, right? But the two of those albums do kind of go together in like a chapter, so to speak.
Well, the sound and the vibe of those records, there's a lot of ways to make a record. And one way is sort of like the Pickersville Sessions, where you sit down with a musician and you try to make it sound like you're sitting in the room with the musician.
Oh boy, I even turned it on mute.
No worries.
All right, my bad.
And then sometimes when you make a record, you say, we got all these tracks to make exactly what our vision is.
Right.
And both have their definite artistic merit, but these two records were at least one where you were like, let's paint
dabbling.
a picture here. Yeah.
And what was unique about those two, in contrast to those to follow, was the modern way of recording, of course, is to use all of your tools, track things bit by bit, be as precise as possible. And there's a place for that. It sounds wonderful. But kind of what we did with Weight and Mud, I sat down behind a condenser mic, I plugged in my DI, and I had a vocal mic. He mic'd it maybe 3 or 4 different ways. And I played each of those songs like a songwriter, acoustic guitar and vocal. Each one, just like I did Pickersville. And then we decorated around those songs. Yeah. So none of them were to a click. And we didn't separate the vocal from the guitar, so I still had the intensity that I might have had locally, but in a live show.
Yeah.
And then we just decorated around it, which was extremely fun because there was no click. We had to be creative and like blur things so you wouldn't notice that I missed a note here, or like, get creative with frog sounds and weird like.
I'm a big fan of that, man. I like to do what they call like kitchen sink production, where you just keep throwing stuff at it. Yeah. Because the cool thing is, if it doesn't work, you can mute it.
Take it out.
Yeah.
We're not cutting tape anymore. It's not, it's so easy.
And you're not limited by tracks, and just have all the, if you think something might work, try it.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything worked.
Like there's kalimba in those recordings. He used a glockenspiel, and all the flute sounds you hear in those albums were done with PVC flutes that he made and knew how to drill perfectly. They were tuned. Man, I can't even describe to you how flabbergasted I was to meet this fella when he's like, check these flutes out. And he played something. I was like, what? Like, is this the Moody Blues? What is going on here?
That's wild, man.
Very cool. Very cool.
Good records, man.
Thank you,
really
man.
Good. You guys did the Nick Drake.
Yeah. So that was a tribute album.
Yeah.
And I figured, hey, we both know who this person is. We both have appreciation for his works. And it was only at that time that Nick Drake's music started to become really popular, which is ironic that 45 years after your death, you know, your music with the internet would get popular. But
well, it was a commercial. Was it a commercial?
Yeah, it was a Volkswagen
Pink
commercial.
Moon. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I'm really happy to have found his music. It meant a lot to me. And this guy was willing to treat it with respect without, we weren't going to break our back to recreate it. Nick Drake did it best.
Yeah.
So let's just pay homage. And, that's what we did.
Absolutely.
It was cool.
I have a guitar, the little Guild I play. There's an album cover where he's holding an M20, even though he never ever played one.
Yep, never recorded with one. Yep.
But I got one, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's the guitar Nick Drake played." I said, "Well, that's the guitar Nick Drake held."
That's right. Yep.
So
What a mysterious guy that guy was.
Yeah.
It's an interesting shooting star for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Is Iron and Clay the next one?
So Iron and Clay is the most recent.
Yeah.
And that was 2020.
2020.
Yep. And that was me deciding I could get weird. I started to break things apart. I was recording a lot more in my bus because we were all sent to our rooms for a year, or for at least 6-8 months.
Right.
So I was just getting weird, man. I had this angst, and I was like, I want my voice to break up some. I want to let go of this sweet, soft voice at times in my album without overdoing it, if for no other reason than a nod to my appreciation for metal, but it gave me another dynamic in those albums, whereas they were kind of soft, sweet, and intriguing, the first 2-3 albums. This one had some oomph to it at times, and there's still some beauty there, of course, and some soft, delicate stuff, but Iron and Clay is titled as such because it's the coming together of the organic side of creativity and the technological side of creativity, and I was really, really stubborn to that for a long time. Like I didn't want a loop pedal because I could do it without it. I don't want to track everything separately because I could do it without it. And
sure.
Finally, I was like, all right, I'm going to shake hands with the machine, and we're going to see how big a sound I can really get. And
right,
man, I'm still dabbling. It's infinite.
I talk to a lot of people that when they record, they always think like, I'm not going to do that because I won't be able to recreate it live. But recording and live is two completely different things.
That's true. And the things you could do for live now, if you've got a good team, are wonderful. I mean, you don't have to impress everybody by just standing there with a guitar. Like, people don't mind if you got a team in the back. Why is this doing this again? I'm so sorry, man. Time to wake up, Josh. All right, I'm gonna make sure this is off here. So anyway,
some of my favorite though, if you think there are legendary live albums, and what makes them so legendary is that they have nothing to do with the record. Like if you think of Nirvana's Nevermind or Nirvana's MTV Unplugged, and you're like, it doesn't have Smells Like Teen Spirit on it. It doesn't have
those big hits that you were one to buy Nevermind for.
Yeah, and they're doing something in a completely different way, and they're recreating it in a different way.
It's your song. Do it how you want.
Absolutely.
You're allowed to cover your own music.
Yeah. I love hearing like Colin Hay do Men at Work songs solo acoustic, and brings a different thing out of them that, if they would have said, this is only what we can pull off live, so we're only going to do this, probably would have never heard of them.
Well, if you allow yourself a little bit of grace and lenience with your own music, you can age well with it. Like you can, okay, so I can't do this the way I once could. I don't have the finger stamina, so I can simplify it, still get the point across, and age well with my song. I left room for myself to do that. A lot of these bands now, have you ever heard of Polyphia? You know who Polyphia is?
Oh, yeah.
So remarkable musicianship, undeniable musicianship, but I'm like, dude, I want to see you do this when you're 70. Can you stand up there like Mick Jagger and still like, I want to see it. Let's do it.
Just that one that came out like last week.
Ridiculous. Next level stuff, man. And I'm so glad that we can enjoy it and listen to it for free and watch that these people are doing it. And but
that also is the product of somebody who was able to watch YouTube.
That's right.
At a very young age. And where I had Guitar Player magazines at best. That's a step ahead of the people 15 years before me.
If you were lucky enough to have a DVD or a VHS, you're rewinding it every 5 seconds to watch people's hands and
So it's I wonder what's going to happen next. I mean, we're to the point where people are wild on guitar, man.
On everything, on anything.
Yeah.
So people are like, you can watch people who are the top tier of whatever it is you're into. You can watch the best in the world for free from your phone, wherever you are, in the bathroom, right? And it just keeps raising the bar. And you have people who start playing music as young as maybe I was. By the time they're 10 and they're serious, and they're watching the greatest guitarists in the world, and they're able to do some of that stuff. So I'm watching these children drummers. I've been learning to drum and taking it seriously in the last couple of years, and nothing like seeing a 10-year-old who can do all the paradiddles and stuff flawlessly, and you're like, dude, you can't walk right yet. What is going on?
Well, I mean, there's an age in your life where your brain is just more of a sponge.
That's right.
And when they're taking all that stuff on, when they're building it up like the English language, like walking, like...
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I'm glad we get to see it, man. But
yeah. And but the beauty of it is, and the beauty of art is that level of virtuosity doesn't monopolize what's good.
Right.
Some of my favorite music is the simplest thing. When somebody can pull something off in a simple way, that gives me the goosebumps too.
That's Pink Floyd, man. That's why I have such an appreciation. A lot of people let go of Pink Floyd because it's sad music, makes you feel a certain way. But man, they're so much better musicians than they ever showed you. Like there's an artistry to restraint. If you can hold back and just play what the song asks for, man, that takes experience. You can't teach that. You know?
Oh, David Gilmour can bend one note, and
yeah, it's one note and some reverb, and you're satisfied. You're like, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
You did it, man. So the Iron and Clay record too, did it start out? I saw there was a lot of singles off of it. Did it start out sort of as singles and then the record came together, or?
So I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, the way we were doing Iron and Clay was different in that John and I weren't together. He moved to Colorado, and so we had to do everything remotely. And so we were trying to send stems back and forth to one another as we were recording, and we would be working on 2 to 5 songs at any given point, and there was no guarantee that anything would be done at a certain time. So the best option for me to have content coming out when I wasn't allowed to leave my room was to put a song out every, I don't know, month, 2 months, something like that. And what I thought would be neat was I would change the background on the same image. You know what I mean? To kind of give the vibe of the song, but to keep the point, which was this sad robot thing I was going with, this motif. And at the end, I'd compile them all and release it as a compilation as well with a totally different artwork. And it kind of worked. It was cool. It gave me something to share. But ultimately, I guess it missed the mark of pushing a whole album at once. And, but...
Well, it's different these days.
Yeah.
It's not really an album marketplace anymore.
I think that's true.
With social media, with the internet, it's all about, okay, you did that. What's next? What do you got for me now? It's been a week, Joshua.
Right.
Like,
I mean, they're probably only going to give you, 30 seconds to 3 minutes of their attention anyway. Yeah. I mean, that's usually, I hate to admit, what I would do if I'm being introduced to something. I'm like, I kind of want to be impressed within that amount of time. I'm a musician, so I'll give it the 3 minutes, the 5 minutes, maybe 2-3 songs. But the days of being handed an album and putting the needle on it and running through the whole thing, flipping it, running through the whole thing and experiencing it, even a CD, those days are kind of gone. People don't do that anymore.
They have to win me with a song before they get an album play out of me, typically. Yeah. And sometimes I miss a lot of people the first time around that way because it is the wrong song or it was the wrong moment or,
People used to do concept albums. Yeah. That was something that I did with Mud and with Wait that I wanted to kind of keep alive. Was the thing that made Dark Side of the Moon so beautiful to me was that it was really one song. The whole thing is one song split up. It's in similar keys. All the stuff can go together. I can't stand hearing it on the radio because of that. Because you're like, they're going to Motley Crue now. Great.
Right.
So I wanted to build that album so that anyone who wanted to dive into my music would have a treat, like an experience, one song, one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And then Iron and Clay was just like, all bets are off. Let's scream in this song.
Well, and I noticed that you were like collaborating with different folks. You had Tristan on a tune. You had
wanted
David on a tune.
The world might be ending. I don't know what's going on. Let me try to bring my friends in. And again, I could send David never came over to track with me. I just sent him the stems. Yeah. Tristan did come over, but we were just sending things around. It was a lot easier to have features, to have other team people involved, and yeah.
Yeah, when I saw it was 2020 that all this came out, I kind of did the math of that's what happened. I mean, when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden musicians didn't have gigs and they had a lot more free time on their hands, and generally an expectation where it was like, oh, you need to put out things because you got all this time on your hands.
Where are your videos?
Yeah. When's your live stream? This guy's live streaming. What are you doing? Yeah.
I'm dealing with emotions in my psyche right now. There's some stuff going on, man. Like,
right.
Give me a minute.
Yeah.
That I'm glad we had the means to do stuff like that when such things were happening in the world, because I needed that to some degree. It was my medicine, even if it was a little grumpy in this song or a little too sad. Like I wept in one of those songs, and we can talk about the song in just a minute. But it was, the point of that was to have an outlet for this emotion when, I was afraid to go anywhere, of course, for a number of reasons. But one of those reasons being you don't want to affect people you love or who love you. You don't want them to be upset even or what's going on. So everybody's kind of tiptoeing, and I was like, from the comfort of my home, I can convey my emotions however I need to. I can record it. There was a bunch of stuff I recorded that you'll never hear, I promise. But that's the way it goes, and I'm really, really grateful that we had that kind of opportunity. We could have just been sad, dark, hanging out at the house with a book and not understanding what was going on in the world, but I got to sing about it. It's cool.
So while we're talking about Iron and Clay, you want to play a song off that record? Yeah,
I think I'm going to do one from the record called Work. And that's kind of a cool song that I wasn't very confident with playing live for people at first because of the content and what it meant to me. And I didn't want to have to explain to anyone what it meant. I didn't want people to be like, what is that about? And then put me on the spot. And
sure.
Work was good. I wrote at a time where I had no work. I was doing really well with gigs, just like a lot of people in town. Man, I had the ball rolling, and then it stopped. So I was like, all right, I have to figure out where my work's coming from. Where's this... how am I going to be paid now? What am I getting paid in? Like, what's going on? And so, there was work.
All right, man.
I don't want to take your mark. You offer your hand right from the start. And while awakening, there you are. You whisper in my ear your shooting star. You know you are. You know you are. You know you are. I don't want to take this mark. You offered your hand right from the start. Now while awakening, there you are. Whisper in my ear your shooting star. You know you are. You know you are. You know you are. You know you are.
Very nice, man.
Thanks, dude.
So I did look through your catalog quite a bit. Notice there's a lot of like kind of live EPs here and there, and a lot of
just releases to have content, things
Sure.
to interact, and
Yeah.
Then there's some weird stuff on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it though, man. Yeah, and then you can do. That's the point of like being an independent musician. A record label would probably say, we're not going to put that out.
Sure, or go ahead and get that, scrub that off the internet because we're going for something else.
Yeah, yeah. Or, that'll be a B-side or what have you. But, you can do whatever you want, man.
None of my, millions and millions of monthly listeners have complained at all. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I figure until you are a certain, I don't know what I'm trying to convey here, I guess. Until I'm at a certain point and feel that it's important to scrub a lot of those things, I think it's good for at least my own mental health to know where I've been, where I started, what kind of sounds I wanted to put out at that time,
Well,
There's a rap song in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, man, you are in control of the direction you go in.
Correct.
And there's nothing more important as a musician than having that control.
And you never know what'll hit, man. Like, I
Right.
mean, if something is going to happen, all of a sudden someone's like, yo, I heard this rap song you did back in 2009 with these guys. I'm like, you mean in my bedroom? Where it was like making beats on a oscillator? It's like, yeah, do that again. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, 2024, you might be a rapper, man. We might
who
be
knows?
scrubbing all the folk stuff.
Post Malone was not always a rap artist.
Right.
Did you know that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good example. The bad example I had was Sugar Ray.
Okay. There you go.
Like pre-Fly, they were like a punk band.
Yep. And then they were like, oh, that sold really, really well.
Yeah, we better do that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a bad version. Unless if that makes you money, do it.
Hey, there's a difference between selling out and buying in, man. You got to make some money, and we all got to have a little
like
something. Yeah.
Excellent. Tell me about, when I listened to the couple podcasts you did with Brian Dales, you were talking about the van. You were working on the van, and even though everything in the van worked, maybe the van didn't work as well as you were hoping.
Yeah, so the van was a really cool, I miss that van a lot, man. That was rock and roll, dude.
Yeah.
I was having some changes going on in my life to where I was living was not conducive for me at the time, So I wanted to figure out a way for me to have my own space. I was on a musician's budget, which was squat and pride. And so I decided that I was going to build a van. At that time, you're starting to see a boom in people doing that, building these tiny mini, campers and touring the U.S. and all. And I had a friend at a junkyard who hooked me up with a mid-'80s Dodge van. It's a piece of turd, and I polished the crap out of that turd, man. I wanted that to be mine so bad, and I built this whole vision into it. Fold-up bed, sink, I had all running water, electricity. I could go like 48 hours off-grid with this thing. And, the motor ended up, the transmission let me down, and all of the, what do you call them? Water ports, water jackets. Anyway, there are these little plugs, water plugs on the side of the block, and it just started blowing them out. And I was like, great. So I needed a whole motor rebuild and transmission rebuild. And the fellows I entrusted to do that were unable to make it happen.
Okay.
So, I ended up having to let go of the van, tried to get my mind on differently, and was renting from a friend when I got a message from someone who was like, hey, are you interested in my mansion? And I was like, you own a school bus.
Yeah.
You own a school bus, and I know where this is going. And so, it was all downhill from there. I went and I looked at this full-size school bus and ended up picking that up and renovating it. And I still own that. I've got a 38-foot, completely renovated schoolie.
Nice.
That's live-in ready and awesome. Very cool, 60,000-mile running bus.
Very cool. Is that where you're doing your recording now?
That's where I'm actually living full-time in the school bus, and I do some recording in there now. And the front half of it's outfitted to be at least a little bit audio friendly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of boom in a school bus with a metallic dome ceiling when you first got in there, but I figured out a way to make it workable, and it's conducive to the lifestyle I want at the time, and I've been building it up now for at least the last 3 months pretty hardcore and quickly, hoping to travel. My plan is to go see my cousin in Florida, and I want to catch her band. They're touring the U.S. now, but I want to catch them in their hometown and do that at my school bus. So I'm going to go.
That's awesome, man. I saw you'd done, was it the bus you'd done a couple live streams in?
Yeah, I gave that a go during the quarantine too, and that was cool.
How'd you get internet in there?
So I can draw internet. I've got little boosters and stuff, and at the time there was a Wi-Fi on the farm that I was parked at.
Nice.
So there were actually 2 other people in little tiny homes, and they were picking up on the Wi-Fi too.
Cool.
And we all just shared it. Yeah.
Nice.
You got to have Wi-Fi.
That's how it should be, instead of...
Especially Wi-Fi. I mean, come on now. What are you losing by me?
Exactly.
As long as I'm not up to nefarious things.
Right, yeah. You're not pirating gigs worth of movies, which now that movies stream, who cares?
Hey, I hacked a Nintendo DS recently, so shh.
Oh, man. You still run Wings Back Entertainment?
Loosely. It still exists. The concept's still there. I had to step back, man, because... I got this entrepreneurial mentality and started taking on more than I could chew, if I'm honest. Like I got way too involved in things, and then before I knew it, I was letting people down more often than I'd like to, and it was not good for me, not good for them, and I just kind of had to hit the brakes a little bit. So my focus right now is mainly drum with a couple artists in town and playing as many solo gigs as I can in the type of venues I'd like to play.
That's the tough part.
I'm finally honing in on that, where I would say before the quarantine, I was willing to take whatever work I can get. And I really just wanted to be out there and put myself out there.
Yep.
And I was playing a lot of places that were draining. You know what I mean? I would play a sports bar underneath a TV and like, oh, are they looking at me? Nope, it's the Braves. So I'd like to try to play more of those listening rooms, things like we were talking about. And again, I'm steering the ship. So if I want to wait and play original music for a coffee shop or a wine bar, I can do that. And I forgot what your initial question was, but that's where I'm at.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. When it comes to playing those gigs, I'm always interested in different people's perspective on it. There are some gigs where I will take a little less money for a lot better vibe.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are some gigs where you're just going to make money and...
You're playing Dave Matthews or whatever you got to play.
Well, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's just not my wheelhouse,
No,
man.
I feel you.
Yeah, like even if I knew half of the songs that were being requested of me, I just can't deliver on them in the way that
Do you do covers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I first moved here, though, I didn't really know that many covers. I knew a lot of Tom Waits songs, but
that's cool.
But then it's to the point where, I can play 3 hours of covers, but it's not going to be, the ones people generally want to hear.
Well, and that's kind of where I was too. Like I do have a wheelhouse of covers, and I've got some that you would recognize and the average would recognize. But most of the stuff I choose is stuff I want to choose, that I can actually put my heart into singing and playing. And unfortunately, it's not always top 40. And when you're at a sports bar and you get requests for, I don't know, let's just use Freebird as a nice common example. Like you're not going to like the version of Freebird I play for you.
Exactly. If you told you and I to both independently make a list of 15 songs people want to hear, I bet you 10 would match.
It's true.
And those songs are fine. It's just it's been oversaturated at this point.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of I started to learn how to play guitar in the 90s, and the grunge scene was going on, and a lot of weird one-hit. I'll play weird one-hit wonders from the 90s all day.
Oh, yeah.
I'll play a Crash Test Dummies song. And
Filter, something random.
Yeah, some fastball, but when it comes to John Denver, I just don't know any.
Same. Yeah, I mean, there's some that I can hit, like Bob Dylan. I've gotten that request a lot. And lots of respect for Bob Dylan, but there's really only one song is Don't Think Twice that I know.
I do that,
Otherwise, I'd stay away from Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
If you like Bob Dylan, you're not going to like my rendition of it. I can't promise I'm going to be that good.
Right, yeah. I do like the Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Tom Waits, Tom Petty, because at least my voice is not going to be worse.
I guess some leeway there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to choose your cover songs. I think I know some guys that do the songs that are most requested, and there's a place for that too.
And
they make
all
the money,
money,
dude.
Yep.
They get all the gigs, they do all the things, and that's great. But having said that, I want to find those places where I can play 45 minutes to an hour of original music instead of 4 hours of cover songs. Get exhausted, and by the time I get to playing my original, I'm like winded, and I'm like, I already been playing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes there are some rooms where you can take the covers slightly more obscure and like kind of take it down the path where it ends at your own tunes if you have the right kind of crowd that will go on that journey with you.
I agree.
And
start shaping the emotion of the room and everything.
The nights where you can make that happen, those are those magical nights that you're like, okay, that's why I do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of dinner shows I've played. I used to play at the Ice House in Somerville every week, and I loved that space because I could, I don't want to say I could control it, but I could interact with it.
Yes.
I could feel people like, being into the music or even if they're against the music or whatever. Whereas, again, using the sports bar as an example, they're not there for you.
Right.
They're there for their beers and their, friends, and that's what it is.
Do you have the songs that you put out there as feelers? Like you'll say like, I'll play this song, and I'm just wanting one person to look up when this starts.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, I'm playing to you tonight.
That's right.
Yep.
I have a starter song. Like usually I'll pick one of 3 different starter songs to kind of feel a room out. And in one case, I can very quickly like, oh, this ain't going right. And I can kind of morph it into another song that I think will do well. But there are times you have to force it, I remember realizing there are times where the audience kind of dictates the vibe. And then there are times where you tell the audience what's going on.
Sure. Sure.
And knowing which show is what is important too.
I know people that are fantastic instrumentalists or singers who have not, and myself, it's not like I've figured out that thing yet.
Sure.
But it's a whole different thing to figure out on top of learning the songs and remembering the words, because I don't bring the iPad either, so I got to remember it.
Right, right. And you have to do that until you get to the point where people are practically buying tickets to see you.
Yeah.
Once they do that, then you name the room. You make the room exactly what you need it to be. You color the canvas, but until then, you have to make sure people don't leave the restaurant. You don't want to shoo people off,
right?
And you also don't want them to be so enthralled with you they're not drinking or whatever it is. That you have to kind of keep it copacetic.
Yeah,
copacetic, aesthetic,
aesthetic. Yeah,
yeah. See, this is the thing.
So I don't think it's a secret at this point that I came from Ohio, but when I was in Ohio, there were a lot of scenes where you could be put on a night of maybe 3 songwriters, and you would play a 45-minute set, and you would be expected to be all your songs and maybe like a fun cover at the end or something like that. But and it was cool within that scene to thumb your nose at the people who play the cover gigs. But coming down here and playing the cover gigs, I don't believe I've put in my 10,000 hours yet.
As a cover artist? Yeah.
As a performing musician. Anytime that you are up in front of people strumming a guitar and singing songs and maybe trying to hit a note that you didn't hit last week and maybe trying to play something at the tempo that you couldn't, I just want to get my 10,000 hours in,
It's true. 10,000 hours as a guitarist does not equate to 10,000 hours as a performer. They are different animals, for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about your songwriting for a second.
All right.
I heard you say a couple times that you really don't think about something before you write. You don't sit down with this strong intention where I'm going to produce a thing and build it like a factory.
Right. Especially if it's a feeling. Like, so say I'm experiencing heartbreak. That's a common one that songwriters use. And I don't want to sit down and say, I'm going to write a song about heartbreak, because boy, howdy, that's going to be just a wallop. I can put all those words down at once. And I prefer illusion. I prefer not necessarily beating around the bush, but leaving a little mystery and intrigue to the lyrics. And so if I sit down in heartbreak without necessarily contemplating heartbreak and just kind of emote that, like sit down with the guitar and see what kind of chords are heartbreak right now, see what words end up. And sometimes, like, I'll describe a song as being like, the song Work I played a little earlier. I describe that song as being about one thing, and people hear it and they're like, I don't really see where you got, did you get your point across? Did you not get your point across? And to me, that's not there's a time and a place to be very direct and to say things cleanly and swiftly and cut through, the static and say exactly what you need to do. And there are times where I don't want you to know exactly what I'm feeling. I want you to kind of come near it. I want you to taste that emotion and kind of see how it contours into your own life. How does, what does it remind you of? I don't want to give you too many details, because if you have all my details, you're not going to let yourself relate. You're going to say, oh, it is different than what I experienced, And
that's the danger of explaining it after the fact, too.
I agree.
Because maybe maybe it means something
totally
to them.
Different.
Maybe it means a lot to somebody. And then you're like, well, it's not about that.
You take it away. Yep.
It doesn't mean it's not to them.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm open to discussing what songs are about with people, especially privately. I like that, And if you let me know how it made you feel and stuff like that. But I would never tell someone like that is what the song's about. And I would never use, I don't know. I try to stay away from details that pigeonhole me, I guess.
Sure.
Like things that are time sensitive. I don't like to. Let's see how I go about this. I think in Pickersville was the last time I was willing to write lyrics that were era sensitive, like that could be outdated. One of the things I like about Pink Floyd was that they never, talked about things from their era that would be lost with the decades.
Right.
I wouldn't write a song about Verizon, because what if Verizon isn't a company in 10 years,
Yeah.
So I try to beat around the bush, use some allegories, use things that are intriguing and might stand the test of time.
Now, when these songs hit you, or when you sit down to write these songs, do you physically sit down and say, I'm going to see what pops out? Or do you stand out there sort of with the butterfly net and kind of catch something as it goes by?
A little of both. It depends. I think I have examples of both. I have examples also of being that disciplined songwriter who's like, okay, today your exercise is to write about cars, right? Or use that analogy or something.
Sure.
But I like it to just kind of channel through, and see what comes out. And if I can do that properly, and if I can subjugate what I know about my ego and get it out of the way and allow the words to just come through, sometimes I learn about myself. And that's why I have some songs that are in my book that are on the back burner that I won't let you hear yet, because I haven't learned the lesson. I haven't learned from what if you don't think and you write a page worth of lyrics and all of a sudden you come back to it and contemplate it, you're like, oh, okay, there's some subconscious stuff in there. There's some, unconscious trauma trying to sneak out in there. And I like to taste those things and sit with them myself before I put them out to the world. And sometimes it never will, come out because it was too direct, or like I'm not going to break down crying in a concert while I play my songs to people. I need to be able to like own the emotion. So it so far has worked out better for me to channel music, allow it to kind of flow in and out. That way I have something to learn rather than me just putting my, as I would consider it, my ego on the paper. I mean, I can do that, and I could probably be pretty powerful at telling it as I see it, and telling the world, but I don't want to be that kind of artist right now. I really like people like Nick Drake. Like, he was writing songs that were relevant 45 years later, and were not relevant when he wrote them. So there's something to be said for that. There's a magic there, I think.
Now, do you have like a lot of journals on one side, and then a lot of like demos on the other side, and then kind of combine them? And
sort of, yeah. I mean, I have I have a stack of composition books that are just all over the place, man. And there are only a couple people who've ever dove into those aside from myself, as it should be,
Yeah.
And I've got recordings that are the same. I got little 20-second snippets where I'll listen to them a year later and go, what the heck was I even going for there? But then there are times where I'll have a guitar idea and I really can't think of a lyric. Nothing's coming to me, and all of a sudden I'll find that journal and something will pop out. And I'm like, wow, 5 years ago I wrote these lyrics that work perfectly to this. And I don't mind assembling things that way.
Sure.
Either,
Doesn't it always seem, though, like the best songs are the ones that just kind of show up on your doorstep? And it almost, the time it takes you to play it is almost the time it takes you to write it.
Yep, and you almost, when people ask, like, oh, you must have slaved in writing this and gone back and forth, and you feel like you're not going to like hearing this, but And I wrote it in 10 minutes. It came out in 15
man.
minutes. Like I've been making it polished for years. You know, I've been playing it 100 times. You know, I make it polished. But the original idea, it came out pretty dang quick.
Oh man, if there was a rain dance that I knew to do that would bring one of those on.
Yep. I'm trying to capture it. Sometimes I feel like those ideas, you ever hum a melody, you're like, ooh, that's good. Like that's probably already taken. It's so good. Right? Yeah. And if you don't capture it, if you don't capture that butterfly and put it down on paper or record it, I feel like it really does exist, and it just goes on to the next musician who hears it.
Okay.
Until they grab it and they're like, ooh, you know, I wrote this. Like, did you write it or did it already, you just grabbed it from the ether?
Yeah, I agree, man. You don't get a lot of shots at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like the listeners going to be like, I could tell this dude's hair is long without him even saying so. Like, listen to him talk. Yeah, I love songwriting, man. There's so many different ways of approaching it, and so many different outcomes. You know, you can, I don't know. That's what makes it diverse. There are a lot of musicians that sing confessionals. There are musicians who sing pop culture. There are musicians who sing things that I don't understand. Then there are metal bands that just scream and make up lyrics later, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Or never really make them up to begin with.
Right. What's that song about? Like, yes.
Yeah. Mainly write on guitar?
Yeah. Guitar is my idle hands remedy. So, guitar's been the thing that I'll grab and sit when I'm doing nothing and just kind of like dabble around and, powder all over it. And so I can say it starts there. The question of what comes first, the music or the lyrics or the chicken or the egg kind of thing, I don't have a straightforward answer for that because sometimes it's the opposite.
Sure.
But I do like to start with guitar, and I do like I like to start with poetry sometimes too. I mean, I end up writing a lot of poetry I can't turn into music. I can't figure out how, I'm not an A-B kind of person. I just write stuff down.
Right. Choruses are tough, man.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever written a song and you're like, I would feel guilty if I tried to write a catchy chorus to this. Like I was, I don't know, selling out or what have you to say. Yeah, I don't know. It's not in me. I don't feel.
So I wrote a song and I don't play it anymore. And after having said this out loud, I think I'm going to go home and remember how to play it. But
you should.
So the song was about, let's see, how do I say how it was about? It had multiple meanings, and I did it on purpose. I was like, I'm going to try like an Elton John style writing where these words have multiple meanings, and I know for a fact you're going to hear it a way that's different than I intended it. Like I'm going to set it up that way. So I used this allegory of the sun going away, coming back, and I have this intent behind it. And anyway, I write the song, and it just sounds hokey. The words are so simple and hokey and stuff, but every single person that heard it, they're like, oh, that hit me. Man, I understand exactly what you were trying to get across. I'm like, really? Yeah. Like, you like that one? Did you hear this one where I'm like, bloop, 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 and all this stuff? And like, yeah, forget all that. That's cool too. But this one, I like the way you just said that straight out. And I was like, all right, so there's some credence to the simplicity of some of these songs. I don't have to prove anything to anyone at any time, really. But with some of these songs, you can let the ones that sound poppy happen. Let them emerge. See what they do,
Yeah.
Because
you don't have to play them for people.
No, but I mean, maybe
don't
should
kill
be.
them.
Maybe should be. You know, don't scrub them because some people might be like, "Hey, I really like that song. I wish I could hear a $10,000 production of that song." And you're like, "Really? Like, can we make that happen? Let's work that out." But a good example of kind of what I'm trying to explain. There's a band called Mastodon that I really like. Mm-hmm. Mastodon went really hard back in the day. They were heavy, punky, like driven metal music. And then, just like many other bands, at a certain point, they release an album of music that's highly produced, very polished, and misses some of the edge that people really liked, the dirty grittiness. And they lost a lot of followers that way, but they gained even more because there's something to be said for embracing that simplicity. Like, they still sounded like Mastodon. These songs still sounded like them, but they were polished. They didn't give you the grit and grime that their other stuff did, but they didn't lose their core. And so I think you have to be willing to allow that to happen as a creative artist. If you're honing in on your style, let it happen.
Well, there are hardcore fans that will say Metallica derailed with the Black Album.
Oh, yeah.
But the Black Album's what sells their tours.
That's right.
And it is what it is.
Dude, I listen to Load and Reload. I don't care. Yeah. I'm not ashamed.
Right.
Sure, it might not sound like old Metallica, but consider it a different band if you got to. It's good sounds. Listen to these sounds.
Sure. When you're writing songs and they start to take shape, number one, do you hear the arrangements in your head of where it could go?
Yes. And I think there's a path of least resistance to get there. Like I can tell if I'm trying too hard. If I may not hear like in some sort of Beethoven-esque way, like the whole orchestration, that would be marvelous. But I can tell if I've veered off the path. Like, okay, you're trying too hard to prove a point here, or you tried to, you got away from, again, that simplicity or whatever. But even with playing guitar, sometimes you'll fall into what the song asks for. Like you might accidentally keep hitting this note, and then finally you're like, that note belongs there. That's part of the vibe. That's why that's why it keeps emerging. So yeah, I think sometimes you just have to kind of get out of the way and let it emerge. And I guess I forgot your question again. So clearly I rambled.
If you hear the arrangement,
yeah, you have to be willing to go away from the arrangement you might have in your head or your expectations, allow things to emerge naturally and organically. But sometimes, I have a direction. I want it to kind of stay, and especially with structure. As a percussionist or rhythm person, structure is most important. Like I know where the change has to happen, and as long as I stick to that, anything else can kind of emerge.
Now I wonder, especially when I'm listening to people like yourself that are you're kind of your own style. It's hard to say this guy sounds like such and such.
Right.
Sometimes when there are people like that where you're like, well, he doesn't sound like anybody in particular, and you listen to them, they're like, oh yeah, I was just trying to be like that guy.
Right.
So when you're writing something, do you ever start a song and you're like, well, this is kind of like this person or like that person?
Yes. And it happens sometimes if I'm really spending time with an album, another person's album, or you can hear the influence, and it's my opinion that influence is okay. It's good. We all have influence. You should embrace it a little bit. Don't try to be someone else. Like they're guaranteed to be better at being them than you are, I promise. So,
well, nothing exists in a vacuum.
Right.
And
some people spend time really emulating. I saw a short video the other day where this guy got the exact same face tattoos as his favorite rapper. And I'm like, whoa, really? And so let yourself be influenced. If I were to sit down, and I love when that happens, people are like, who influences your music? This soft, gentle, percussive acoustic guitar fingerstyle stuff. And I'm like,
Megadeth.
Yeah, I like Lamb of God. I like Pink Floyd. They're like, whoa, what? We were thinking like, Ray LaMontagne or something.
Right, yeah.
And there's a lot of influences that all come in accumulation. But I remember, do you know who Alexi Murdoch is? Have you ever heard of him? I found him in the same vein as the Nick Drake thing. He was probably a person my age who was recreating that style of fingerstyle. And listening to his album over and over and over again, I started writing music, and I was like, okay, you're finger picking that way now. Yeah. You can kind of hear it. Don't let yourself play the same chords he plays because you're going to fall too close.
Throw a capo on there.
Yeah, that's right. I embrace some degree of influence. I think it's impossible to escape. And so, and that's an umbrella statement for more than music, but I let those things shine sometimes. I like to think my use of reverb most recently is Gilmour-esque. I'm paying homage to Gilmour. Yeah.
If you were to choose songs that are not your own, if you were to choose like 3, 4, 5 songs that you consider to be just a great example of a well-written song, like what are the first songs you think of?
Even if they're obscure.
Especially if they're obscure, yeah. Because then I'll go listen to them and find new music, so absolutely.
There's a song called Drive Home by Steven Wilson. That song is, I can't, I cry. I can listen to it and I'm like, what kind of beauty is this? And so that. He's from a band called Porcupine Tree in the UK, and they're capable of being harder rock, but something about this song is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So that's an example of good songwriting, I would say. Another would be Don't Think Twice. I already said that out loud. That's a heart-wrenching bit, and it's very clearly spoken, the words that rip your heart apart. I love that. I think it's a great song. And then another by name. Let's see here. I got to put Pink Floyd on the list, man. I got to. Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to go in a territory most people wouldn't quote, and I'm going to say their album, Division Bell, is full of gorgeous, mature songwriting.
I love that.
It's so good. And, you know, I love that I got to be born in the 90s. I was born in 1990, and so I grew up with my dad listening to that, taking me to school, and I didn't understand how emotional that album is until I was an adult, and I'm still learning from it. I can still listen to it, and it still gets me. So there's a chemistry there and a formula, I think, that they, after 40 years of playing together, started to hone in on. And they were like, okay, we don't have anything else to prove. Let's just write our hearts, like write these songs.
Well, and it's a little bit, too, that it was just like kind of David Gilmour's thing at that point.
Yeah.
And you heard of the band War on Drugs?
No.
Okay. If you listen to Coming Back to Life off of Division Bell.
I cover that one, yeah.
Oh, you do?
I do. It's a great album.
And then if you listen to the band War on Drugs, you're like, they are babies of that song. Like it's
so they took that flavor and they just made
it is that flavor, and it's.
But that's awesome,
oh, man.
It goes back in, like we were talking about. Metallica had a period of time that they lost some of their old fans. Like, you sound different now.
Yeah.
Like, well, they're just pioneering something. You know, whatever they're into now. Why don't you form a band that sounds like what you liked of them?
Sure.
In the same way, Animals was a great Pink Floyd album. Fantastic album. Sounds way different, and more aggressive Animal than Division Bell.
And that's Roger Waters. That's
right.
I mean, it's like John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
Sure.
I mean,
but I could stay in the same boat. Piper at the Gates of Dawn is some freakish, like,
it is.
early emergence of the same people. You
Sure.
know? So if I were to just hear Division Bell and really fall in love with that without hearing the rest of the repertoire and start a band that sounds similar to that, it doesn't mean our band sounds like Pink Floyd. It means our band sounds like 1990s Pink Floyd.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Pink
Who are
Floyd.
your favorite songwriters?
Nick Drake, right off the rip. Steven Wilson has carved his way in there as being the person I quoted earlier. Listening to his ability to write prog rock, traditional metal and rock, and then get into some sort of weird pop thing he's doing now, electro pop.
Yeah.
Lots of appreciation for his versatility there. And a third, man, there's a guy named John Martin, not the local John Martin, who some of us may know, but his last name's spelt with a Y. And he was able to be writing songs in the 70s that were very...
Did he do May You Never?
Yeah.
Was that him?
Yeah, he did. I'm so glad that you know that he wrote that song too.
I'm trying to learn that.
Yeah, Eric Clapton covered that song and did a good job. But so John Martin, if you have time to dive into his repertoire, it's a treat, man.
Excellent.
And something I can tell you about him was he was actually Nick Drake's best friend. And John Martin's first album, Solid Air, that got popular, was written about the loss of Nick Drake because he was inspired by the sadness Nick Drake had of Nick Drake was always told, you're something special, you're gifted, we're going to put you on tour on Island Records and people are going to come and enjoy your music, and no one would give him attention, nobody would show up, and it baffled his mind. He's like, you tell me I'm so good, but I'm sad because the world doesn't convey this to me.
Right.
So anyway, when he was lost, John Martin started writing a song, specifically Solid Air, about his buddy going too far. Like, you went too far into the other side and we couldn't get you back. Well, that album made him famous, made his whole career. And it's kind of wild how that works. But looking at the story from the outside, I can put myself in his shoes and go, wow, your songwriting really is coming from a place of, you never say Nick's name. You never tell us exactly who you're writing about or what's fueling this. But like I mentioned earlier, he's being allegorical. He's kind of talking in circles and letting you put yourself where you need to be when you hear these songs without knowing too much of his business. Because if you get too into the drama of the names and things like that, then you're kind of missing the mark.
It locks you into a certain box.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, if it's given to you and you're able to make it apply to your own life.
Yep.
And that's what the best music does. The best music, you're able to hear it and say, this is my life right now. And then you hear it 5 years later and you go, well, this is my life right now for a completely different reason.
Right.
And then it had absolutely nothing to do with it when they wrote it. I mean, that's the beauty of art.
That's right. And I think if you can get around, if you can word things properly, you can allow that to transcend time. You really can have music that can be listened to 50, 60 years later. You know, maybe learning this is why Taylor Swift stopped using names in her songs.
Yeah. Maybe she's just tired of giving interviews.
Yeah.
Having to explain herself.
Yep.
Well, this kind of dovetails us into my next question. I always ask, even though that these days we are definitely in a market where it's all about singles, it's all about the big radio bop that's hitting, but what's your favorite records? What's an album you're going to put on and that's 40 minutes you've committed?
So I am a vinyl record collector, and I started off trying to take on any vinyl records I could get, and I quickly realized they're heavy as crap, and they're huge and bulky. So I'm careful to only buy my very favorite records, and I have a nice dear collection of those things, modern and old. And so I can easily say, of course, Dark Side of the Moon is probably one of the most well-written albums of all time, in rock music especially. The Raven Who Refused to Sing by Steven Wilson was released in 2012. And front to back, dude, this thing, I bought it on vinyl just so I could put a needle on it and hear it like it was written. Front to back is gorgeous. This one is probably not going to be agreed to by anyone else. But one of the coolest records that I found is an album very blatantly called 666 by a band called Aphrodite's Child. And this is a special album because it was well produced, well put together, and very well written with this concept that was biblical in nature, very big and like important to these songwriters. But they veiled it by the album art being bright red with the number 666 on it, and no one would sell it. No one would put it on their shelf because they're like, we're not having that shit in here, you know?
Right.
So it fell to the wayside, and the only people who know this album seem to be rock stars, seem to be people who know rock and roll and would go to record stores and flip through infinite records until they'd find special things. And of course, the Rebels would pick up the bright red album that says 666 and go, I've never seen this, you know? It's weird. I will let you know. I see you writing it down.
Yeah.
It is rock and roll. It's fun. There's some psychedelia in there, and then at the end of the album, if you manage to make it that far, it gets into some very like primal-esque. They sort of made the most primal aspects of the human experience into music somehow.
Okay.
And it gets very bizarre, but if you're willing to give that an earshot, man, it's very special. And I've heard all kinds of people quote that as being a pinnacle rock album that nobody talks about. And I really could go on more than three, man. I'm reminded immediately of Big Star's #1 record. That was a fantastic record.
Yeah.
And anybody who knows about that puts it on the top of their list too.
Sure.
And, yeah, man, there's just so many. I could go on and on and on, and I'm willing to listen to more than rock and roll, so it's all over the place.
Oh, yeah, man. What are you currently working on?
I'm being pretty quiet. I've been a recluse in the recent past for a number of reasons. Just growing up, going into my 30s, kind of hit me like a brick wall. And so anyway, I've been writing a little bit, and I've been recording a little bit. I don't know that I'll do the single thing again. I'd like to build up for a record, and even if it takes me a year, and then just put it out there. For a while, I wanted to do a record a year. And at this time in my life, I just don't want to put too much pressure on myself for anything. Yeah. So I'm just trying to be easy going. You know, I got time. But I've been dabbling in all kinds of shaking hands with that machine. I've got some stuff that's very ambient and Brian Eno-y that I'm adding lyrics and some Gilmore-y guitar to. And then I've got some stuff that's kind of glitchy sounding where I'm playing with pads. And yeah, I'm just throwing a lot of lures in the water. And I'm going to see what kind of fish I can pull in. And if nobody likes it, I will. So that's what's up.
Very cool, man. I'm excited to see what you come up with next. Thank you for coming today.
I sure appreciate it, Eric.
I loved hearing your stories and getting to know you a little better. Will you leave us with one more song?
I sure will.
What do you got for us?
I'm going to do a song called Media. And I don't have to tell you too much about where that's going to go, but this song was definitely written in 2020. And it was written in frustration a little bit with the fact that I was fighting with some of my most beloved friends and didn't know why. I didn't do anything, and neither did they. But there was this animosity between people, and it broke my heart a little bit. And so short of having a debate with those friends, which I don't enjoy, I would rather talk about nothing than be going against a best friend or somebody who I love. You know, I hated seeing people's brows furrow at me for an opinion or the vice versa. That was no fun. So the song Media is just sort of my decree of we're all a little confused, I think, of what's going on in the world, and be careful where you get your information from.
Sounds good, man. Let's hear it.
Gotcha.
for proof in the lies of your news? Do you think that all those who cry tell you the truth? Because the soothsayer tries not to look you in the eye, while the timing of his smile seems aloof. Follow blindly the prophet of the times. We consider our minds our own, but we're unhappy when we find that the motives were unkind. We're reminded of the lies that were spoken, like the heart of the sunshine, the eye of the moon. 'Cause if you don't believe them, they will call you a loon. And I might be a person, but I'm not sure about you. If I can't stare at the sunshine, I'll howl at the moon. For proof in the lies of your news? Do you think that all those who cry tell you the truth? Because the soothsayer tries not to look you in the eye, while the timing of his smile seems aloof. And you'll follow blindly the prophet of the times. We consider our minds our own, but we're unhappy when we find that their motives were unkind. We're reminded of the vows that were spoken, like the heart of the sunshine, the eye of the moon. 'Cause if you don't believe this, they will call you a loon. And I might be a person, but I'm not sure about you. If I can't stare at the sunshine, I'll howl at the moon. Howl at the moon.
Man, that guy can play guitar. I wish you were sitting here with me seeing him do this, but come out Friday, June 17th, and see him, myself, Ron Daniel, Dan Riley, and Anna Crosby at Ron's album release party at Coastal Coffee Roasters. I'll post about it on the Songs of the Unsung Facebook page. If you're not following us, songsoftheunsung.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'll see you next time. Thank you.